Hello, and welcome to the Smart Art Academy live workshop on how to draw easy trees. I hope you can all see and hear me. I'm doing my usual, is there anybody there? Am I live? Can you hear what I'm saying? Because I have no idea. I'm streaming on my streaming software, which is wonderful, but it means I can't see YouTube at all. So I'm just assuming in my sweet, innocent little way that it all is working. So if you are watching, it would be, oh, sugarations. It would be amazing if you could just drop something in the chat and let me know if I am live and working. Hello from Cape Town. You can see and hear me. Hurrah! Thank you, Vanessa. Excellent. We are live. Marvellous. So I'm going to crack on. This workshop is all about easy trees, and I've got a few little tips to make things super easy for you. Now, what I like to do each workshop is to start by getting you to draw a tree. From imagination, memory, whatever, because it's always nice to have a starting point, a reference to work again. It basically comes down to when we compare ourselves to other people, and which is something we should never do. We should always compare ourselves to where we were and then see how far we've come. So doing a tree at the beginning of this workshop means that during this workshop, we're going to work through some drawings and things. And by the end of the workshop, you should have another couple of trees that are going to look different to your initial tree. And this is going to help you see progress, basically. So whatever you have to hand, draw a tree. And you may have a biro, that's fine, use a biro. During the workshop, I'm going to let you draw that while I prattle on a bit. During the workshop, I'm going to be demoing using charcoal. I'm using willow charcoal, and I'm going to use a charcoal pencil. As you can see, this is well used. There's not much left of this pencil. I love charcoal pencils. They're really nice because they're nice and they're compressed charcoal, so they don't blend or smush as much as willow charcoal does. So you can get some different effects and different things with this compressed charcoal. I'm going to be blending, and to blend, I'm going to use this wonderful piece of kitchen towel. This is the best, most useful, most economically available blending tool you can ever find. You just wrap it around your finger or create a little point, and you can use that as a blending tool. And it's just so cost effective, and they're brilliant. I love them. So I'll be using that for blending. I do have a blending stump as well, may or may not use that. But if you have a kitchen towel, this works for pencil as well as charcoal. So if you are drawing with pencils, I do a lot of sketching with pencils. I've got a selection here. These are usually the only 4 that I use, but I do have some Conte really super dark noir pencils. If I want something that's really, really like dark. But I tend to just use a small selection. So I have here a HB, a 2B, a 4B, and a 6B. And that's essentially all you need. The reason I'm not doing the demo with pencils, because I love using pencil, the reason is it doesn't show up on my camera particularly well, whereas the charcoal shows up way easier, and you'll be able to see much easier what I am doing. So that's why I'm doing that. And now what I'm also going to I will be talking a little bit about the Smart Art Academy, because this is kind of how I teach in the Smart Art Academy. If you want to come and join us, you would be super welcome. but it's up to you. Obviously, it's entirely up to you, etc., etc. But I'll drop a link in at some point as to the where you can go and find the academy if you are interested in learning more. My philosophy is to understand the why and make things easy, so that you're not just following a tutorial, you're actually understanding why we do the things we do, so that then you can go and create your own pictures from your own reference photos, and you don't need to have somebody next to you telling you what to do all the time. So that is the principle. So how's your trees getting on? Have you been drawing them a little while I've been prattling on for the last 5 minutes? Hopefully you have, and hopefully you've got a start. Throughout this whole workshop, I do have a little chat window open. I'm just going to turn my radiator off, actually. It's underneath my desk, and it's been on for a little while to make sure that my studio is kept nice and snugly warm. But I've suddenly realised that I also have the fire on in my lounge, and it's awfully hot. So I'll turn that off. So hopefully you will have a tree. And hopefully this is a good starting point. This workshop is going to go on for about an hour-ish. We're going to do a couple of principles and a couple of examples. And if you have any questions at all on what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, the methods I'm using, put them in the chat. I do have the chat box open. I am assuming I can see everything. It's always assuming. We all know what that means. Makes an ass out of you and me. But I'm assuming the chat box is working. I have Vanessa's chat there, so that is looking as if it is. So if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. I will answer your questions as I go along. And like I say, the preamble is a bit of a preamble while people are dropping in, etc. So, shall we get started? Is that going to be cool? Right. There are a few things I like to know about trees. And there's this wonderful 500-year, probably more than 500-year kind of guide. Some artists call it a rule. It's not a rule because there's that many exceptions. It's like grammar, you know, I before E except after C and a variety of other exceptions. This rule does have exceptions. However, the principle works. So the principle in drawing trees, if you're looking at branches and all the things that Leonardo da Vinci he observed trees a lot, and he observed the fact that the trunks are larger than the branches. And when we first start, in fact, while I gabble on about this, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn my cam link on and I can demo this and show you exactly what I mean. So that's my cam link. Let me put my little doodle in. Hello, that I can see you and talk to you while I demo this, and turn my light on a moment so that you can see. Hopefully you can see my paper now, and I've got a couple sheets of paper on there. I'm just going to get my other sheet of paper that had fallen on the floor, because I'm going to use this to do my little example. So, and I'm going to, I see my temptation is to use pencil here, but that's not going to show up. So I'm actually going to do this in pen to show you an example. And while you are, I hope, drawing your own tree from imagination on your bit of paper, just so that you have a starting point. If you've just joined us, that's what I've kind of tasked you to do while I'm rabbiting on, as I have a tendency to do. So, Leonardo da Vinci's rule. So if you're drawing a tree, and I'm going to draw a tree as if I used to draw trees when I was younger. And I used to draw trees with, oh, that's not a very good pen. That one is the one I used for a design earlier and completely wrecked it. So I will use a biro instead. So hopefully this shows up better. Can you see that? That's still quite light, isn't it? I will use a brush pen and then you should be able to see that, right? Ah, that's better, isn't it? So while I was younger, I would draw a tree and I would have the tree trunk getting wider at the bottom, and I would then have my tree trunk branching off. Yes, I did used to draw trees like this, and to be fair, you might do as well, and that's fine because we all start somewhere. And then I would have it branching off and off like that, and then I would have some more coming off here. That's a terrible, and then I might have something coming up here, and then I would get smaller as I go along. And so it's tree, it's fine, and I would have squiggly bits at the end, which would be the clumps of leaves. And that's kind of how I used to draw trees. And to be fair, the principle is correct-ish. The branches branch off, etc., etc. But this is the difference. This is the Leonardo da Vinci rule. And the Leonardo da Vinci rule is, this is your thickest part of your tree. And what he said was, because each ring is basically grows a ring a year, as the branches branch off, this, let's say this is, oh, I'm going to get into mathematics now, terribly sorry. This equals 1, okay? Now that means, well, actually no, let's make this equal 10. So that means all of these branches, so let's say that's a 3, and that's a 3, and that's a 2, and that's a 1, and that's a 1. Oh gosh, now my maths are, again, that's 10, isn't it? So that would have to be a 0.5. That would have to be a 0.5. Maybe they make that a 2. Basically, the sum of all these branches has got to equal the same as our trunk. So if you smush those branches together, because at the moment they're a bit thick, it doesn't work well to the eye, and that's because they're too thick. And we often make this mistake. Also, branches start in the middle. They don't necessarily start right on the end. So just making alterations like that can make your tree look way more believable. So the answer is to smush things up. 6, 7, 8, 9. Yeah, that does equal 10. I was just checking then, just to make sure my maths is right. I used to be an accountant, which is a bit of a worry. I'm struggling to add up to 10, really, isn't it? We'll gloss over that. So yes, so you smush your branches up together, and that should equal the same thickness as the thickness of your trunk. So that was the concept that Leonardo da Vinci came up with, and actually works reasonably well. If you're drawing a tree, so if I'm drawing a tree, for example, now, and I'm just drawing one from imagination, I'm starting the same way, but using this method, I'm thinking, okay, well, my branches here can only ever be the same width as that, which means when I branch off here, I'm only ever going to be the same width as that trunk, that branch. And then when I branch off here, I've got to be even smaller until we are literally just doing tiny little branches and twigs. And then we can kind of do broken lines to suggest something. And we can get really much smaller. Obviously, this is without leaves, but you know. So we instantly get a lot smaller, and then that becomes sort of more believable as we move those through. So you kind of smush it up. Hopefully, that makes a bit sense. It makes sense of how I'm describing it. Obviously, there are exceptions. Exceptions include palm trees, because they're all top heavy. They're palms, they're not really trees. Yeah. So normally you would have this element, and these are the exceptions. But when you're sketching out a tree from imagination, or even when you're observing trees, when you're out going for a walk, just have a look and see, just be mindful of the width of the trunk and the width of the branches. how is that working? Are they splitting out so that they all smush together into one lump that's no bigger than the trunk? Useful thing to observe. So how are your trees? Have you been drawing some trees while I've been prattling on? Hopefully you have, because we're going to have a little demo. Again, if you have any questions, do put them in the chat because I will answer them as they pop in. I'm just going to take a swig of tea a moment, bear with. So I will answer those questions as they come into the chat. So do put them in. I am, like I say, if there's anybody watching now, just put hi in the chat just so I can make sure it's still working. And when I switched cameras the other day, it didn't, the other minute, it didn't dislodge everything. And I shall get started. The other thing I will be using for my demo is a putty rubber. So I'm using willow charcoal because it shows up better than a pencil. I'm using compressed charcoal pencil. I'm using my trusty kitchen towel to blend. I'm using a putty eraser, and I use putty erasers. Andrew, hello Andrew, yay! So I use putty erasers to help make marks and to basically to draw with. I've got a mono zero eraser these are great for little details. So I like using those. So that's what I'll be using today. Obviously, if you want to use pencils, I would suggest a range of pencils from a HB up to whatever you've got that's really dark, because it's nice to have a good contrast. So a darker pen, softer pencil, the better. And of course, with pencils, you can still use your trusty kitchen towel to blend them. Right. So let's start, shall we? So what are our basic tree shapes? I'm going to do a couple of these because what I love about trees is it is just a basic shape. And if you start with these basic shapes like a circle or a teardrop, or I'm going to pop the main trees in the middle there, or you can kind of have it's kind of like a triangle, but it's not a triangle. We've got movement and volume in there. And you do have, for example, a triangle. These are all different types of trees. And when you're out sketching, you can observe the shape of a tree and just quickly put down that shape. So I've put these in the corners because I'm going to do more detailed illustrations in the middle. I could, shall I do one big one and then I'm going to do a bigger one in the middle because it'll be easier to see than if I did 4 smaller ones, and then I can put some extra paper on and do some other ones as well. So you may look at that and go, oh, how's that turn into a tree that looks realistic, Susan? I mean, goodness me. Well, let's start with our circle, shall we? Now this could be an oak, it could be an apple, could be all sorts of different trees that have this voluminous shape. I'm going to draw a trunk because that kind of anchors it to the ground. Now how I start everything is I want to know where my light source is. This is the key point to practically everything in art. And what I tend to do, I'm going to draw it over here actually, is I draw myself a little sunshine. I know it's sad, but that way I know where my light source is and I don't get confused. So I tend to draw it on a piece of paper if I've got a piece of tape, if I've got some tape on so it doesn't actually go on my drawing. So I know that my light source is going to hit my tree probably around there. It's going to be the lightest area of my tree. So that means that this area of my tree is going to be pretty dark. And this area of all of that of my trunk is going to be pretty dark, to be fair, because the light's that's going to cast a shadow onto my trunk. So very little of that trunk is going to be in the light. So now what I'm going to do is exactly what I would do when I'm painting anything. And this is the key. The process works for everything. I'm going to start by blocking in some dark shapes. And I'm using, like I say, my charcoal. And I'm just looking at where is my darkest shape. And I'm going to put some really dark charcoal down there. And it's going to look a bit meh. That's fine. It's absolutely fine. And then I'm going to do a lighter tone. Now, if you're using pencils, you might want to start with a lighter and then work to the darker. So maybe start with a HB and do a gentle over everything kind of mark. And then get darker, so put another layer on and then go up to a stronger 2B maybe. I wouldn't put anything darker on if you're using pencils initially, because we want to use that for the details. At the moment, we just want to have a tonal map made up, and then we're going to create our tree out of that tonal map. So I'm now going to get my trusty, very exclusive blending tool, and I'm just going to shmush. It's one of my favourite words at the moment, shmush. Now, I did draw that line round really firmly. You don't need to, normally I would have just done a light trace so you wouldn't get this sort of edge to our tree, but I'll kind of get rid of that anyway. So I'm just doing a dark tone and a mid-tone and our light where our light is hitting it. And I'm just going to stroke down for that trunk. At the moment, that now looks like a blob, but it's looking hopefully like a bit of a stylized three-dimensional blob, which is great. Now, we mentioned before trunk. I've already lost my, oh, there it is. Honestly, put it down and it just vanishes. I'm going to just indicate within this tree shape just where my branches might be, just to have an idea. I'm not going to, these are going to be smushed in, I'm not going to see them. I just want to have an idea of where they might fall. And we'll just have little tiny branches at the top, but again, these are going to vanish. I just want to have an idea of where my form is. And then I'm going to darken again in that dark area, and now I'm using squiggly styled motion. And the reason I'm using a squiggly motion is because I want some movement. I want to try and get some, and I want to follow these branch lines a little bit. So we've got a bit of variation happening within the tree. And this side is lighter, so I'm going to put some darker bits around where the branches I think would be, but not much. I'm going to keep that reasonably light. And then I'm going to get my trusty exclusive blending tool again, and I'm going to blend over the top. And you may say, but you've just done all that squiggly lines and that drawing in, and now when you're blending it, you're just kind of ruining it because it's now, you can't see those. Well, no, you can't, but you kind of can a bit. And this is the, I talk about Matisse a lot when I talk about brain work. Honestly, living in another country, learning another language while going through a menopause means that I tend to forget all the words in all the languages at the same time. Charcoal, that's the word I was thinking of. Of course, I can't remember the rest of the sentence now. There you go. But yes, so when I'm talking about Matisse, he tended to draw things out with charcoal, and then he would literally take it back, blend it into nothing. But blending it into nothing leaves behind kind of a shadow. So what we've got here, and I've been blending in that same kind of semicircular motion, is we've got, it's now beginning to have a bit of texture. If you see, there's a little bit of texture going on there, and you're getting an idea of that. Even though the initial lines have gone, we're still seeing that shadow of what we've drawn. We're basically staining the paper with our charcoal. So again, I'm putting some more in. I'm really concentrating down at this bit where we've got this sort of shadow, and then I'm going to come up here just a little bit, mainly on this side though, because the sun is coming this way. And then I'm going to really put some nice, and now, if you notice as well, I've been doing the squiggly at the top. When I'm doing the trunk, I'm making long motions down, and this is because I'm mimicking the direction that the form is going in. So we're a bit sort of all over the place on the actual main tree, but our trunk is kind of going straight down. So now I've got a very dark kind of semi-stylized circular, this was our lollipop tree. So now I'm going to get my putty rubber and I'm just going to tidy up the bottom because I might put some little grasses down there. And I'm just going to tidy up around that trunk. Straighten it out a bit maybe. And maybe on this side too. This is your tree, you can do whatever you want. And I'm going to look at the edges. And when we look at trees, the edges, there aren't really any edges. They kind of go a bit all over the place, don't you? You can see through, especially the edges of the, you can see the sky through the branches and that sort of thing, because we've got areas that just kind of hang down, and this is quite a tight formed tree. So I'm just going to take some of that dark out. I've taken a bit too much dark out, I think, on that side, so I'm going to put a bit more back in again. The great thing about charcoal is it really is a play. It's kind of a push and pull, and you can really experiment with how you like it. But now we've broken up that initial circle, it's starting to look and read a lot more believably. And I'm on the light side, we're going to get light hitting the leaves. So I've got my putty rubber, and I'm squidging it into a kind of, not a point, but it's sort of like a dull point. And what you can do is you can then dab that on the top, and that gives an illusion of light hitting leaves. It's just a hint, it's just an idea. We don't want anything exact because this is a sketch of a tree. This is easy trees. This is making trees look believable without really any effort. And it's just about looking at where the light is, making sure things, that's probably a bit too dark in there, light in there rather, so I might take that back a bit. I'm breaking up this edge, and then I'm going to come back in with my willow charcoal and just squiggle a little bit around there and just maybe lighten up that bit just a touch, and darken that bit just a touch. See, brain dead, honestly. And now we've got something that's looking really much more like a believable tree. And what I'm going to do as well is I'm going to put maybe some lines coming down this trunk, because we might have some light hitting that side of the trunk too. And then that, I'll gently stroke the putty rubber down that side, and that just gives some nice texture without making it too light, because obviously the light isn't going to hit directly under here because we've got the shadow of the tree itself. And the shadow of the tree itself will also come across the ground here. So this now anchors it. We've now got a ground that's anchoring our tree. And we're going to pull that ground across to the other side, but we're going to make that much lighter on that side because obviously this is getting sunlight. But our main shadow is, our light is coming down, so our shadow is going to start kind of around here and go that way. I will probably put some grasses in because I think that's always fun. And with grasses, if they're catching the light, again, putty rubber, brilliant. Sharp point. And it gives a lovely effect. I do love all these effects that you can get with all these different materials. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my, oh gosh, that's a bit of a disaster. Let me grab another one a moment. Here's one I prepared earlier. This is the new one that's going to replace the one that's this one, which is nearly dead. And I'm just going to add a little bit of grasses. So the thing with the compressed charcoal, and what makes it different to our willow charcoal, is that it doesn't blend as you can still soften it, but it doesn't blend in quite the same. Let me put some here. So if I'm doing something with a, let's say put some marks down with my compressed charcoal, and then let's put some marks down with my willow charcoal as well. So this side, left-hand side is the willow, and that's the compressed. So when I get my super technical, highly intelligent blending tool, and I blend my willow charcoal, I can really smooth that into a lovely blend. When I do the same, let's get a clean piece of paper, then I'm not going to move willow charcoal over there. With charcoal, compressed charcoal, you still get lovely blend, but you can see those marks underneath, which means that what you can do is put some really lovely detail. So what we can use it for here is just some little detail-y bits, just some coming out of the tree, so little wiggly lines. Great thing about nature, and this is something that people say, I can't draw a straight line. There are no straight lines in nature. Nature's all wiggly. You don't need to be able to draw straight lines. That's what I love about it. I can't draw a straight line either, but I can draw a wiggly one. And I'm just going to give the illusion of just some little marks in here, just to give a bit of texture. I might put some a little bit just over, because there's never really a complete circle, and you don't have to do a line. It's just a design, an idea. You want to have a feeling of texture moving amongst your tree. So I'm literally doing lots of wiggly lines. And kind of, a little bit will give it contrast, which is nice, because you may well get contrast because you've got the lightest lights on quite often next to the darkest darks, and that gives us a lovely contrasty feel. And that is my circle to a tree. Tree number 1. So that is a circle. And it's really nice. I like the effect you get with that. And the thing with I'm going to carry on while I'm talking. The thing with doing trees like this is they are super easy. They're really effective, and you can kind of doodle with you on a piece of paper. It's a really mindful way of just playing, and it gives a really nice textured feel and effect at the end of it, which I really like. So what about those other shapes? Now, if you have a shape you particularly like to have a go at, because what we've got here is we've done the circle tree, which is kind of a generic sort of apple type tree. That would be really good as an illustration somewhere. The great thing with doing things in charcoal and pencil as well is you can spray them, and then if you want you could put a wash of colour over the top, and that can be really nice and effective, especially something like an acrylic ink or a gouache or something like that, and that can be really lovely to do like an underpainting that's a tonal study. Fix it with fixative and then apply some colour over the top, and that can be quite fun. So our teardrop shape is effectively a cypress tree. Our triangle, any guesses for a triangle? That will be the fir tree. And our kind of blobby one, that is a... Oh no, it's stopping and starting too much. Oh no, I hope that's not for everybody, and I'm streaming consecutively. It's difficult for me to tell. So what I will do, everyone, is I will look at the YouTube replay, and if it's a bit stuttery and starty on the YouTube replay, because I'm recording this on my computer as well, I will upload the recording onto YouTube as well, so that it's there if the YouTube recording isn't very well. So thanks for letting me know, Valerie. That's really super. So what I've got is triangle, which is your fir. You've got blobs, which are kind of your oak trees, effectively. We've got cypresses, and then for the other tree shape that is quite common that I see around in the UK is this shape, and this is our willow. So our willow tree, which is lovely and just kind of sweeps down. So what I will do is I will turn my paper over, and if there are any requests, pop it in now. If not, I'm going to do a fir tree and maybe an oak as well. I know, going all out here, you know. Right, because they are slightly different. And what makes them different, let me just stick that there, is I'll do a fir over here and an oak over here. So with my fir tree, I'm going to try and do this really lightly this time so I don't get a really strong line, is I'm going to draw a triangle. I'm going to move that slightly that way, then you can actually see it all. And again, a little, but only a little trunk here because they tend to come quite close to the ground. Now the difference with, oh, and of course, I'm going to draw my sun so that I know which way the light is heading. I'm going to put a smiley face in my sun. So my sun is over here again, mainly because it's just easier to draw it that way. So I'm going to have probably this part of my tree is going to be in shadow, but also the underneaths. Now this is particular. Oh, Vanessa, you're also having connection issues. Oh, I'm so sorry. This must be my side. I know my husband is on a virtual meeting at the same time. So I'm really sorry, guys. I will upload this as a separate video on my YouTube so you can still watch it for a week. Don't worry. Oh, that is really sad. Oh. I will have to look into this to make sure that the next one, I'm going to be doing a live sketch along on the first Thursday in February. So I will make sure that there isn't connection issues with that one. And hopefully it's not too horrendous for the rest of today's session. And like I say, I will load up the recording so at least you'll be able to watch the replay properly. So terribly sorry, people. That's sad. That's sad. But I'll carry on and hopefully, it, like I say, it won't be too bad. So the thing that I do with everything, when I'm looking at where is the light, it literally is for where is it falling. And because our light is going on to this side, I'm going to darken this side of my fir more. And initially, I'm not really caring what mark I'm making with my charcoal. So I'm going to smush that. And then I am going to put some more on, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit extra at the top because that bit tends to be a little bit separate. And then I'm just going to start making these little kind of smile shapes, because with fir we tend to have boughs that drop down, and I'm basically doing a traditional style fir. You can have your triangle as narrow or as wide as you like. So I've now got quite a dark tree, and it's quite dark everywhere. And that's because with this one, because the light is going to hit the top of the branches, we're going to be doing a lot of carving out. So I'm going to use my putty rubber, and I'm literally using it just to draw the tops of these branches so that we've got effectively this area. There's no light on this underside at all. This is getting really dark. And of course the trunk is in the middle, so that's not going to see any light. So I'm just going to redarken just the center of it. So you've kind of got this element where we've got light, really dark, dark but not as dark as the middle. And again, blending that through a bit. But I'm quite light with my blending here because I still want to see some of those textures and I don't want to take all that darkness off. And then I'm going in with my eraser, putty rubber, just to tidy up that edges, because charcoal is a wonderfully messy medium. And I'm just going to tidy up the edge, but just the edge, whereas here I lightened up going in a bit. Here I'm just tidying up the edge, just to break up that initial line. And I'm going in with my charcoal pencil on this side, just to give that little extra depth and texture. And I'm just going to squiggle on up to the top and make sure that I've got some real nice definition lines coming off that central point. So we're wanting them to just swoop down a bit. But on this side our highlights are pulled out with the putty rubber, but on this side they're not, they're more charcoaled. I'll continue that down a moment and I will just dab that. So I'm not blending, I'm just sort of dabbing that one. So you've still got the texture. I don't want to get rid of that texture. I just want that darkness in there. And I'm just going to, on this side, next to those darkest darks, I'm just going to pull out again some lights. And you can almost have it so that it's like snow. And so there you get a different feel to your tree. And what I'm going to do there as well is I'm going to put a bit of groundwork in there so that we've got something to ground it with. Let's find my charcoal, and this is going to be quite dark all the way along here because it's quite a dense tree. Lighten it there, but then I want this quite dark on this side. So there we have the different style of tree making a fir tree. Hopefully this is all still working and you can still see me a little bit. I keep thinking maybe my connection issues will kind of miraculously vanish and you'll be able to see me again. If not, really sorry. I'm going to add an extra bit of light in a bit because I'm going to try and get that extra glint. When you watched on the replay, make sure you've done your initial tree before you start watching all the demos. And then you can compare your initial tree to how your tree is now. And hopefully you will see that with your understanding, your trees are improving. And with practice, because let's face it, it is just practice. Practice improves everything. So they will improve because you can't help but improve if you practice a lot. So with these squiggly things, the same principle with the light hitting. But if you think about it, these bits are going to be dark. This bit is going to be dark, and this bit, because it's got shadow, this bit is going to be dark. This bit's going to be dark. This bit's going to be dark. That bit's going to hit the light. This bit will be dark. That bit will be dark. That bit. So think about, I don't know about you, but when I was at school, I used to do writing where you'd put a highlight on one side and darken the other side, and it makes it look 3D. You basically look doing the same. You want to darken those areas that aren't going to be hit by the light and keep the rest light. Getting my trusty kitchen towel out again. And I'm just going to blend each kind of module of this tree. We won't have time to do too much on it, but we will do the best we can in the time. So now I've got a bit of a tree, I'll put that, where we've got, you can kind of see the shape a bit. So you can see where the light is hitting. And we're going to use the same principle as we did back in our tree under here, this one. So we're going to start with the squiggly bits and we're going to squiggle away. And like I say, I know there are connection issues, but if you have any questions and you can still hear me, do put them in the chat and I will answer them as best I can. And I will certainly answer them on the recording too, which I will upload into YouTube so that you can at least get a decent recording when you watch the replay. Because there's nothing worse than having connection issues, and I do apologise. So I'm doing squiggly bits, and then I'm going to blend in a squiggly manner too, to try and get basically a little bit of texture. And then we're going to do the same with our pencil. So we're going to do squiggly bits. So you only actually see the edges of trees. Even when you look at trees outside and when you look at some of the wonderful landscape painters of our time, they're basically, their trees are literally, if you look at some of the, I'm trying to think of one that I saw recently, which was just super, I think it was a Gainsborough, and it was just stunning. But his trees were literally just an indication. And you just saw, and Turner is the same, you get just the little indication of what a leaf might look like on the very edge. But that's it. You don't get anything else. I'm going to put a little bit of an idea of some trunks here because these squiggly bits are attached to trunks. You might think that's looking really weird, but don't worry. There's a process, kids. There's a process. I'm just going to squiggle around here a bit and just dampen that slightly. And then I'm going to go in with my putty rubber and I'm going to take out and dab in some highlights where we're seeing the highlights. And with these, of course, you're seeing highlights in different areas because it's got that overlap. We're seeing all sorts of areas where we've got that highlight happening. And this then becomes this wonderful three-dimensional. And we could have some little bits where you're seeing the light through the trees as well. And we're starting now to get that feel of what this tree is looking like. I'm going to get the highlight of a couple of leaves that might have hit the light just his live sketch along, which is the first Thursday in the month where I shall be sketching live rather than doing a workshop. And if you like my style of teaching and you want to learn more, do come along to the Smart Art Academy. I like to teach you why we do things and why things work, keeping it easy, but also just helping you. So it's very much a hands-on. You get direct line to me where we can actually talk, so you're not just talking in a chat box, which is nice. And we can work on your projects, and there are lots of other projects within the Academy. We have monthly themes and we look at, there's a foundations course in there, so it takes you through colour theory, perspective, all those sorts of things, all that good stuff. It would be great to see you, and there's no connection issues because it's all done on Zoom, and obviously recordings as well, and one-to-ones with me. So that's hopefully started your journey on trees. I'm going to end up fiddling with this for quite some time because I just love trees. I'm sorry, they are fabulous. I love them. I get so much pleasure out of drawing them. And of course, they're everywhere. So you can take a sketchbook, sit at your favourite cafe, look out of a window, or make it up. So these are totally from my imagination, just based on basic shapes. And you can add all sorts of things to them, like a lovely swing. Enjoy. I'm going to take my cam link off now, and two of me, that's pretty horrendous. There we go. And turn this off so I'm not blinding you. Are there, and like I say, other than connection issues, are there any questions that you have? And has this been helpful? If you've been able to watch it through, like I say, this is being recorded offline at the same time. So I will load this version into YouTube. If you're on my mailing list, which you can find by going to my website, www.melville.com. It's a huge story about that, but basically when you've got a name called Susan and you shorten it to Sue, why would you add a letter? It's just weird. Thank you, Sue. Well done with the issues. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah, it's just one of those things. There may be a storm going on. Who knows, or everybody else in the household also using the internet at the same time. But yes, I will load this up onto YouTube. If you have, like I say, if you are on my email list, I will notify you and give you the link. You can get onto my email list by going to my website, which is Actually, I'll write it in the chat, can't I? Because I can write in this thing too. www.sumelville.com. Is that right? Yeah. So that's the website. If you go on the website, you will be able to sign up to a newsletter. It's just, I send tips out every now and again, and also you will then get the link to the recorded version of this, which hopefully won't have the connection issues that this stream has had. And you also get all sorts of other things. And if you want to join the Academy, it would be wonderful. If you want just some prompts for sketching, the Sketching Club is a great way to start as well. And I will talk about that on the first Thursday of February, where I'll be doing a live sketch along. And hopefully I will have resolved all these connection issues. I hope you had a great time. I'm now going to go, and I will see you on the next live. And thank you all for coming and bearing with me. Okay, bye. Now I've got to figure out how to stop this, of course, which could take another 5 minutes, which you'll see me going. Okay, I think I found it. Bye.